Bob again from racecarbook.com, airdensityonline.com. We left off here with a combination that we had set up in a nitro test program in which we added port nozzles, and in the previous video was discussion as to why the port nozzles had the distribution that we had here. We're going to go back to the baseline profiles. We're going to go to our corrected setup here that we were analyzing over the last series of videos. Now, we have not made changes to the port nozzles in this case because, as I mentioned, it's quite an extensive evaluation. This particular engine was in a funny car chassis as well and had a forward bias, and I expect that the front of the engine was stone cold in staging, so there was probably a substantial number of distribution problems with this setup. To get a better idea of where to go from this point, we're going to go to our jetting calc. Now keep in mind we've got a good air-to-fuel ratio, a good high speed in this combination. What I'm going to do is examine engine nozzles, which is our second calculator in this one. I'm going to go back to see if our weather is still in this, and it is. The same weather values are there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and get jetting. Now what this does is, for a specific main bypass, it computes the nozzles necessary to get that air-to-fuel ratio and fuel pressure with the main bypass that was in there. In that case was the 136 with the 40 thousandths high speed. Okay, now it's saying that if instead of the ones that we had in there, we had 16 with an average diameter of 0.42, we'd get to where we're at. So one of the targets would be, as if you're going to decide on where to go from where you're at, you may want to change to all 42s, which would give you a 50-50 fuel split between hat and port. That's a pretty good starting point when you have more than one nozzle per cylinder. One of the other rationales to use would be, what nozzles do you have in inventory? And that's the one that I commonly used in my distribution setups for different percentages of nitro. I just basically did the best effort I could with the nozzles that I had in inventory. Let's assume that we want to evaluate this, and let's say that we don't have 42s in inventory, but we do have 44s, and I want to stick with them. So what I'm going to do is go here, I'm going to fix my 44s in my hat. And then I'm going to go ahead and get jetting. And that tells me that I need 8 port nozzles with an 0.39. Now let's go back down to this. Now that would get me the same air-to-fuel ratio, the same launch air-to-fuel ratio, and all of the other benefits that we got. It would allow me to keep my same hat nozzles that I already own, and then I could start basically with some 0.39s throughout my ports, and then maybe start making jetting changes to those. Now let's go ahead and let's assume we don't, instead of that, let's assume we don't want to change our ports, that we're going to stick with where we're at. So I'm going to unfix my hats and fix my ports. Get jetting. Okay. And that's showing 844s, which is what we wanted. Now, let's come down. Let's change the weather to 80 degrees. Get jetting. For the main bypass that we had, we would need some 47s with the temperature cooling down. Now, again, this would be somewhat of a cumbersome setup. Go back to 93. Okay, I'm going to now say I'm going to fix this cylinder number 7 hat. I'm going to fix cylinder number 8 hat. And then I'm going to fix 1, 2, 3, and 4 as well. The reason I'm doing this is, in actual cylinder number 7 might be lubers in the blower, and you don't necessarily want to change those hat nozzles. And the front may be hard to get to, and these two are normally the easiest to get to, especially if it's a Enderley or Hilborn hat. So let's go ahead and get jetting. And that's telling me I want 2 with a 44. Now let's go ahead and change the temperature to 80. So if I was only going to change 2 nozzles to compensate for the change in temperature, all I have to do is put in some 55s. And a good rationale on this would be to get an inventory of the nozzles that you have and predetermine the day before a race for the weather that you're going to have what nozzle changes that you may have to make throughout the time of the day. Okay, thank you very much.